Hi, my name is Joachim Horn and I'm the founder and CEO here at Sam Labs. Today I'll talk to you about the use of Sam Labs in the classroom and ensuring that through each activity we get the best learning outcomes. I'll be using the Sam Curious Cards app, I'll be using the Sam Space app, a tablet, a whiteboard, the Sam lesson plans and also the Sam Scene Kit. I'll be teaching a few steps to ensure that we always get the best learning outcomes, and that's something that can be applied across the SAM learning regardless of the activity. I'll start the Curious Cards app, and it's first asking me to turn on a button if I find the right app. There you go, there's a Sam Space Radar app, and I divide my classroom in groups of 2s and 3s and ask them to get started. So they get access to the first game in the app, they turn on their block as asked on the interface, and as soon as it's turned on, it connects. And I can ask my classroom, okay, you've got 2 minutes to get the highest score possible. So we want to get them engaged with the technology. So they press on the button, and they see that through pressing the button, the little car goes up and down and up and down. I give them 2 minutes, and I keep the time. After 30 seconds, I tell them they've only got 90 seconds left, 60 seconds left, 30 seconds, and then I do a countdown from 10, asking them to put the buttons on the table when I reach the end of the countdown. 3, 2, 1. Okay, I want to see all the buttons on the tables, and we let the app stop. Then we ask the whole classroom, okay, who thinks they've got the highest score? You'll get a few reaction and the class can get excited, and we can then ask, well, let's actually record it. So we find the whiteboard, and I'll start a new lesson here, and we start recording it. So here we have different groups. We have group 1, group 2, and group 3, and we'll start recording it. So group 1 has got, let's say, 100 points, group 2, 160, group 2, 120, and group 4 did extremely well. They did 200 points at this game. The most important thing is we had the whole classroom engaged, and we asked an important question now. Well, what do they think was happening when they were pressing on the button? We engaged them. Someone might say, well, something was changing on my interface, and let's pick up on that. That's true, something was changing when we're pressing the button. Let's go back and let's see. Well, here, when we're pressing on the button, and I'm going back inside of my app, the car was changing position. So whenever I was pressing my button, the little engine in the car was going up. Whenever I was releasing the button, it was going down. That's because the button is an input. Whenever something's happening to the button, something's happening on the interface. And different to just an input, well, it only has 2 positions. It's activated or deactivated, meaning that when I press, it's activated. When I unpress, it's deactivated. We need to remember all this. So let's write this on the whiteboard. So I'll start a new whiteboard, and I'll start drawing the information about the button. So here we've got a button. I want the whole classroom to remember what a button is and how it works. So I'll just draw a little diagram for a button. Is it an input? Is it an output? We've defined that it's an input because whenever we press on the button, something happens on the screen. So the type is an input, and I'm writing all of this on the whiteboard so all the students can see. And also, what kind of value did it have? Well, a button we've defined has 2 kinds of values, whenever it's pressed or released. So we can even say pressed or released if we've got young students. We can say activated or deactivated. So here, activated or deactivated. If they're a bit older, we can even get them a vocabulary that's a bit more complicated. We can say that it has a Boolean value. A button holds a Boolean value that's either true or false. Again, that depends how old the students are. If they're around 9, then this vocabulary can be applied. Earlier, it might be a bit early. So activated, deactivated. But also, an important question to ask a classroom after we've given them that theory and that engagement is the context. Meaning, where do we find buttons in real life? They might start answering, well, yeah, we find buttons around light switches, which is very good. That's true. We find buttons around light switches. We find buttons around remote controls. Yeah, we've got buttons in remote controls. That's a good point. We can find buttons on phones. That's good. And also on keyboards. That's excellent. To know exactly where we can find these little pieces of electronics in real life. So very quickly through this exercise, we had a button that the whole classroom engaged with, a piece of electronics. They had fun with it, but then they also reflected, okay, well, the button has two kinds of values. It's either pressed or unpressed, that has different kind of actions associated with them. The button is an input, it's not an output. Whenever I press on the button, something happens on the screen, and then also the wider context. I find buttons everywhere, and these things, although they're packaged differently, are the same. What I find on my keyboard is the same as what I find on my phone or on my light switch. Light switch, they behave the same, they just have a different action. They have a different function associated with them. Well, now that we talk about functions, it might be a good time to start and look at the functions and systems inside of the Sam Space app.